Oftentimes, if you have been drawn to a person who is not really living a Christian lifestyle, it is because it is something within you that you have not overcame. Hey you guys, and welcome to the first episode of Wisdom Speaks. To those of you who may not know me, my name is Veronica. The first topic of conversation that I wanted to address is a topic that we find in the book of Amos. It is found in Amos chapter 3, verse 3. And I rely on this one verse for a lot of things because there's so many nuggets in this verse. And it says, "Can two walk together unless they agree?" You know, the thing is, it is so important for us to make sure that we are surrounding ourselves with like-minded people, because people can either bring out the best in you or they can bring out the worst in you. And that is why it is so important to make sure that we're using wisdom when it comes to who we are choosing to connect ourselves with. You know, sometimes we can meet people that are considered a divine connection. It is when God himself brings two people together, whether it's a relationship that ultimately results in marriage, whether it is a friendship that can be a lifelong friendship, whether it's a business partner type of relationship. Those types of things actually do exist. But then you have relationships that can actually manifest as a result of you allowing your flesh to make that connection. What do I mean when I say that? A flesh connection is basically when you are allowing your flesh to dictate who you should associate yourself with. This can be very dangerous because your flesh has still not come under the submission of Christ. And when you are operating from a place of flesh, you're not making the best decisions. You're dealing with character issues, behavior issues. Sometimes you can deal with things that are on a greater scale, like addiction. The dangers that can arise when you allow your flesh to make connections with people is you will find yourself in situations where you are hindering your growth, you are compromising your walk with the Lord. Have you ever wondered why you always see a gossiper friends with somebody else who gossips? Have you ever noticed that, you know, oftentimes when you see someone who is either battling a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction, you know, they always say that they should never try to be in a relationship or a friendship with someone who is battling those same things? It's because in a flip side reality, you can also walk with someone in the flesh that agrees with you as well in what you're dealing with. And so there is an agreement that happens during these connections with people. And, you know, it is so important that we are using wisdom when it comes to people that we are associating ourselves with. Because, you know, the Bible says iron sharpens iron. And that is a very true statement, because when you are in connection with someone who is truly striving to be more like Christ, the same way that you're striving to be more like Christ, you sharpen each other's walk, you build each other up, you encourage each other, you motivate each other. There's such a beautiful exchange that takes place within that relationship. And that's how it's supposed to be. But when you link yourself up with someone who is not striving to be more like Christ, who in actuality is moving and operating in the flesh, then those things that you yourself are battling with in your flesh will begin to become even more prominent in your life. because there's an exchange that's taking place, and that exchange will begin to feed off of each other. And so that's why it is so detrimental to a person's walk when they associate themselves with people who we would consider are still in the world. Even those people who have one foot in the world and one foot in the church. You have to be careful in making sure that you do not allow yourself to be tied to that individual or to be in relationship with that individual, because ultimately it's going to become a hindrance to your walk with the Lord. And in some cases, people go back into the world because of that exchange that they received in that relationship. So when you connect with someone, you need to ask yourself a question. The first question you need to ask is this a God connection or is this a flesh connection? If you answered the question that it was not a God connection and it was indeed a flesh connection, then you need to also ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question you would then need to ask is, what drew you to this person? And then the second question is, what do you have in common with this person? Oftentimes, if you have been drawn to a person who is not really living a Christian lifestyle, it is because it is something within you that you have not overcame. It is something within you that either you have not come to terms with, or you haven't even identified that it is still a struggle in your life. And that's the tricky part when it comes to the enemy, because he's very crafty in how he tries to come in and cause a falling away in a person's walk with the Lord. So you always have to use wisdom when it comes to when you begin to build or establish any type of friendship, association with any individual. I'm not saying that you have to go through life not talking to people, not having any type of exchange. But the wisdom in what I'm saying is you have to make sure that you're being very discerning when it comes to you making a decision to welcome someone into your life, into your world, because ultimately that person can either shape and help you get to the goal, which is ultimately becoming more like Christ, or is this person going to cause you to fall away from Christ? And so I just want everyone to take into consideration these things that is being relayed, because there is an agreement that is being made, whether it is a divine, godly connection that you're making with people, or if it is indeed a flesh connection that you're making with people. So in Amos chapter 3, verse 3, when it made mention about can two people walk together unless they agree, the general point that was being made was that in everything that we do in this life, in this walk with the Lord, there has to be an agreement that is ultimately being made with God. Is our decisions being in agreement with God? It's the choices that we're making. It's the path that we're on. It's the things that we're desiring and ultimately working towards. Is it in agreement with God? Is it in alignment with God? And so ultimately that's what it was referring to. And so we have to apply this very nugget in every aspect of our life, because the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And we have to guard our hearts. We have to guard our minds. We have to guard our lives with everything, because the enemy is very crafty. And we have to make sure that in all things we are using discernment. So I hope you guys enjoyed this first topic of conversation. I hope it blessed you in some kind of way. And if you do not know Christ, if you are struggling on your walk, if you have newly given your life to Christ, first I just want to say congratulations, because you have made the best decision you will ever make in your whole life. But if you find yourself in a place where you're struggling in your walk and in your faith, I want to just encourage you to just continue to persevere, continue to just, go before the Lord and just seek Him with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might, and with all your strength. I promise you God is hearing you. I promise you God understands exactly where you are. And God says that if you acknowledge him in all of your ways, he will direct your path. You hold on to that. You believe it. So I love you all. I pray that you all, again, were blessed by this message. I hope you all have a blessed day. And I thank you all for taking the time for watching. God bless you all. Bye.